camp. That's what it's all about.
Happy hump. Look at Hannah. Happy hump day. Happy Wednesday. Thank you everyone who is here. This is the Crimson Dynasty. We are one of the shows here on the Bama Standard Network. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any content. Now, before we get started, I wanted to quickly welcome those who are new here and then welcome back to those who've been here before. Be sure to hit up that live chat tonight. We love when you all do. And a lot of times we like to engage with you, and whether that's like positive reinforcement or just, thank you for your support, whichever one, just it depends on how y'all come at us tonight. But I wanted to welcome you here. My name is Sishi. I'm the host here. We have two of the best co-hosts that we could ask for. But before I introduce them, I want to quickly give a shout out to our sponsor, Workspace Solutions. So we have their website below in the banner. But if you personally or your business needs a marketing team or you want to up your digital presence, be sure to contact them, visit their website. If you have any questions, reach out to them directly, and I'm sure they would be happy to help you and let them know that you came there from the Bama Standard, just to give us a shout out. Now, like I said, we have two of the best co-hosts. I'm going to introduce Dan first because I saw Hannah kind of moving around. So I want to introduce
listen, I turned my camera off before we did the intro because I needed to get some on the floor. And the next thing I know, it's like, oh, that's
that was hilarious. That was hilarious. That was perfect timing. But I definitely want to shout out Dan first. So of course, this is Dan James IV, for those of you who are not familiar with him. Now, like I said, this is the Bama Standard Network. So we have a few different shows. We actually have at least a total of 5. But Dan is actually from one of our Tuesday night shows called The Final Whistle, and he's the lead recruiting analyst. So basically, if we have any conversations or questions regarding current players, new recruits, or even former players, he's the go-to guy. So shout out to Dan James IV, and I appreciate having you on. And then also I have to shout out Hannah Stevens. She's that girl. We have a great time here. She's very knowledgeable when it comes to football, but also other sports as well, whether it's gymnastics, I don't care, golf, rowing, tennis, swimming. It doesn't matter, because we had to literally pivot a little bit here and not just talk about football, because we want to make sure that the entire fan base is covered. So shout out to Hannah. She has a radio show, ESPN Radio in Huntsville, Alabama. So shout out to her as well. We'll let her include some information later on. But I definitely want to jump right into things and kick things off with fall camp. We know that there's been a lot of talk about fall camp. And so we don't really want to regurgitate anything that you've already heard so far. But I wanted to kind of touch on what the coaches are saying, because there's been different, feedback that we're getting, whether it's from Kane Wommack or Nick Sheridan, different coaches who have thoughts to share. Now, one in particular, Kane Wommack, our new defensive coordinator, when he came to Alabama, of course, after Coach Saban announced his retirement, there were a lot of people scratching his head, right? Like, oh, we're getting him from South Alabama. People kind of wondering, like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But I don't think we really shared that sentiment per se. I mean, to me, when you look at like a Mo Linguist or different guys where they leave their head coaching job to come and be like that speaks volumes. So I want to get things started off on the defensive side with what Kane Wommack was saying. And he kind of named certain guys, and I'm going to get y'all's takes on this, where he talked about the Russaws of the world, of course, from Montgomery, Alabama, how well he's played. He's put on some weight, and also just some of that confidence that he's seen him gain, Yanze Pierre. And then he started talking about, some of the incoming freshmen, right? Red Morgan, that's the one that I'm excited to see. The Red Morgans, the Zamian Browns, transfer from Michigan, or not Michigan, I think Penn State, King Mack, right? From Penn State. Yeah, so he started naming certain guys, and I was just getting excited all over again, because I'm like, we already knew that the hype was real. I didn't question it. I didn't doubt, but to hear it come from Kane Wommack, and one thing in particular that stood out to me that he mentioned about a couple of the guys, whether it's Keon Keeley or anyone else, it's the fact that not only have a lot of these guys put on weight, but the improvements that they've made since A-Day. So that's just a very short period of time. It's not a lot of time, just 3 months. So I want to get y'all's takes on that. Dan, I'll start with you. Any feedback in particular that you heard from like Kane Wommack or Nick Sheridan or anyone else, Jamarcus Shepard, regarding just the progress that they've seen? And are there any players in particular that we need to be watching out for?
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. One I want to mention on the offensive side, and that is Law. Kendrick Law. Man, this guy bench presses 450 pounds, and ran 23 miles per hour. He had the speed and the power. He's a physical specimen. I'm expecting a really big year out of him. I was watching the interview with Coach Shepard, and man, he was singing his praises. This guy's a physical freak. You know, he's going to be a killer out on the edge blocking. Watch out for those crackback. You know, I'm expecting a tremendous season out of him in Germany, but no, it's going to be very physical on the perimeter in Tuscaloosa.
I agree. And so you're talking about some of the offensive guys. So I mentioned a lot of defensive, but I'm glad you brought up offense because Ryan Williams, for example, I mean, Ryan Williams is doing exactly what we expected Ryan Williams to do. And that's just point. I don't expect anything less. And it's so awesome to have guys like him, whether it's that one hand over the shoulder catch that he made, you know, Jam Miller making plays in the backfield, catching balls in the backfield says a lot about him and his growth. You know, ever since Jam has been there, I want to say a couple years ago, I kept saying like, dang, we should have him out there more. And I didn't understand what was going on with the coaches. Like, how are y'all not seeing what we're seeing? I mean, get this guy out there. And so I think with the offensive scheme that we're going to have and the coaches that we're going to have this year, we're going to see a lot of that. Justice Haynes, you know, like I said, and then Austin Mack, he's another guy, like you mentioned, Dan, Kendrick Law, you know, a lot of these guys, they're really impressive, but not just them. When we talk about receivers, we have to think about the Caleb Odoms as well. Of course, he transferred over from tight end to wide receiver. But then speaking of the tight ends, Robbie Oott, CJ Dupree, Danny Lewis Jr., all three of them looking great out there. Jay Lindsey, who's coming in at the tight end position, all of them gaining weight, all of them looking good, all of them, you know, doing their thing. So Hannah, I want to ask you the same thing. Any feedback in particular from the coaches that stood out to you? And are there any players in particular that are on your watch or your radar right now?
I mean, I think y'all kind of hit the nail on the head on all of them. And I think for me, one of the most exciting things I see is that the team seems to be gelling, right? When you bring in guys from other programs, and I'll say this too, I think getting to watch the video of Parker Brailsford having a good snap to Jalen Milroe at the right height was probably the most encouraging thing I've seen thus far, because Jalen Milroe didn't have to pop a squat to catch the ball, right? So for me, I think that right there, having Jalen Milroe as quarterback, having that leadership, having those guys on both sides of what we talked about last week with Steven, who are kind of be those vocal leaders, I think for me, seeing some cohesiveness from guys who may have transferred, returning, maybe first year playing. I mean, I think we have a really good group. And I know that, you know, we were ranked number 5, the lowest we've been in a long time in the preseason, but that's exactly where we need to be, because we need a team that's playing with a chip on their shoulder rather than a target on their back. And I think for me, I am excited. I like what I see, but I think one thing that a lot of people aren't talking about is how cohesive and how well this team's gelling. And that's something you don't know what you're going to get when you have players that transfer. And when you have guys that leave and come back, you don't know how the team's going to react. But I think the team dynamic is a lot different in a good way. I think you have a lot of teammates rather than individualists. And I think last year, it's kind of like a garden. You have to weed to grow. And I think we had to weed some of the individual players that wanted to play for themselves, the name on the back, rather than the University of Alabama. So I'm excited. And I think the best is yet to come. And I think we're seeing small snippets that should really excite us for this fall.
Yep. I agree. And I believe the timing of Coach Saban's retirement, I think it almost feels like it was the perfect time. And when you think about when in the year it could have happened, because I think it allowed a lot of the emotions to play out, and then a lot of the movements. You think about, you know, a game of chess, all the different strategic movements, even from Coach DeBoer when it came to the coaches that he hired. You know, I mean, y'all have to understand, and I'm not looking at the chat right now intentionally, so I don't go off on a tangent. But if it's any of those like raggedy fans from Auburn or anywhere else, y'all have to understand, over here we play a game of chess. We ain't playing checkers, y'all. We move differently. It's not the same. And so, you know, we're just seeing that, like you said, the cohesiveness, everything coming together. But a couple other names that I didn't mention that stood out is Jihad Campbell and Deontay Lawson, just how fast they are. You know, like they of course we talked about them last season, but I just think that speed that we're seeing, the agility, that Justin Jefferson, like these guys, we have a lot to look forward to, Bama Nation. I know, I think that we always kind of know that in the back of our minds, but I think this year is going to be special in particular. And I'm excited to see it. But I want to make sure that we have enough time to cover everything, so we won't stay on that too long. I know that it's a lot of other talk that's being, you know, put out there regarding fall. I
was going to say there's one comment in a minute I need to call out.
Okay.
This one, at this point.
Let's see. You can go ahead and call it out before I move on.
Let's just say Bama Killer says you
Oh,
keep using
God.
the word "we" a lot. All right, let's just get.
Well,
something
we're not going to
straight.
say you. This is them.
Well, yeah,
It's
all right.
definitely not you.
Well,
It's-
first off, it's proper English. Secondly, bro, Dan, you graduated from Alabama, didn't you?
No, my brother did.
All right. Well, you know,
and his brother played. Like, sir, you
and
can
I-
never.
you
Sit
and I
your behind,
graduated
like where
from
you
Alabama.
belong.
You and I graduated from Alabama.
We
All right.
did. We did.
Have a
You should-
diploma that's very expensive. That I have framed, and it's standing. You know, it's on the wall, loud and proud. Roll Tide. I was also an athlete at the University of Alabama, so if you want to get that deep, but also if I'm not mistaken, and I'm happy actually, I will actually go back after this episode and watch how many times you've said "we" representing your university, the University of Ohio State. So we will bring some stats back next week on how many times you said "we," just so you want to get this started.
Yeah, they're
And
just
another
disgusting.
thing, another thing, Bama Killer, really? You ain't
I
even
know. It's so
killer.
lame.
You're not a Michigan killer. You're not a Missouri killer.
You're an Ohio State fan that has to say Bama Killer. Really?
And you know what? Ohio State likes the fact that they have some of our players, and I'm like, it's kind of like hand-me-downs, right? It's kind of like
that's all it is.
It's kind of like a secondhand store. Y'all buy your players from the thrift store,
just like Florida State.
Yeah, it's like you're proud about. I mean, I am very blessed, like blessed and released that Seth McLaughlin left Alabama. Like, you know, and honestly, you know, what's that singer's name? That McLaughlin lady. That's like the PETA, the theme song of like those sad dogs. You know, like PETA, whatever. That's how our season was last year.
Yeah,
that is the theme song of our season was.
It
that
still was better than Ohio State when we were talking.
And we're gonna be good. We're Gucci. So you know what, Bama Killer? I don't even know. You know, I don't understand why you call yourself Bama Killer.
But you know what?
Have an Ohio State logo. Like that's how much we live rent free.
Exactly. But what I've noticed is that a lot. See, bitter people do bitter things, right? He's still mad because we tore them up just a few. I mean, how do you hang on to a failure from what 3-4 years ago when we beat them in the Natty? Like, for one, he's still mad about that. He's still the Justin Hill guy, the guy that we're getting in, the one from Ohio, or the commit. Y'all can get him. Like, sir, you have nothing to talk about.
Like, beat Michigan, so who are they to talk?
Like, it's just it's horrible. Here you have Michigan out there scouting and trying to pull plays from University of Central Michigan, and y'all can't even beat. Anyway, okay, let's get back to our discussion at hand. I mean, there's just it's sorry, but I do want to move on as we're talking about recruits and just what's next for Alabama, the commitments. I want to pivot a little bit to talk about certain guys that we've talked about here a few times, but one in particular that I'm hoping that we hear some good news from very soon. Class of 2025, running back Akylin Dear, of course, from the state of Mississippi. He was committed to Ole Miss, but then, of course, he knew that he made a mistake, and so he decommitted. He was in Tuscaloosa for the Cold Summer Cookout, and he's been in Tuscaloosa a few times. I'm excited. I really hope that we get him. The only question that I have, and what I keep hearing comes up, is like Anthony Turbo Rogers out of Montgomery, Alabama. Now there's talk that if, you know, Akylin commits, then is Turbo going to decommit? Is he going to flip? What is he going to do? And honestly, I hope that we can keep both. I would prefer to see that. I mean, I don't know. I think, you know, with Anthony being an in-state guy, you definitely want him. But with Akylin being as good as he is, you don't pass up that. I mean, that's the guy that I want to see us get if we get anyone else. But I wanted to mention a few other names. Dan, I know with you being the elite recruiting analyst, you probably have much more information than I do about these three guys. But they're from the 2026 class. It's a safety by the name of Blaine Bradford. He's from Louisiana, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He listed Alabama in his top 5, and he's ranked as the #1 safety in the 2026 class. He's about 200 pounds right now. He's apparently really good. I mean, he's the top of the list right now in terms of safeties. But then you have class of 2026 edge rusher Zion Ellie, from Baltimore, Maryland. So he also listed Alabama in his top 5, and he's listed as the #1 edge rusher in the 2026 class. But then one other guy, we haven't really heard much about athletes in our 2026 class right now that we have, but he's an athlete, 2026 class, Jet Washington. He's from Nevada, and he has recently gotten an offer from Alabama. He's ranked in the top 20 nationwide. Not sure how interested he is in Alabama, but he did receive an offer. So with those names that I just threw out there, anyone in particular that that you think may be trending more so towards Alabama? And are there any names that I missed?
No. They named us in the top 5. Blaine Bradford and Zion Ely. Anytime you're in the top 5, that's a good thing. But rankings right now, especially in the 2026 class, they mean nothing. So Alabama's still gonna evaluate. Some of them, I would think that Bradford and Ely, they may have committable offers. Sometimes they're contingent, especially with 2026 guys, they're contingent on camp performance or season performance. So, Alabama's in on a lot of safeties. I like to throw in another name, Caden Hall, a safety, 4-star safety out of Milton, Florida. That's another one that Bama sits pretty well with, and we also know that, we offered Minka Fitzpatrick's brother. Mm-hmm. So, we have a lot of options at safety. It looks like now we don't have a safety committed in this class. Mm-hmm. And Zealous Hicks from Parkview. Well, now he's transferred from Parkview to Carrollton. He was talking, and Bama's really high on him, and he's high on Bama. And there's a possibility that he may reclass, to the 2025 class. So, we have a lot of options at safety going forward, in whether it's 2025 or 2026, after losing Derek Smith. And we still, we'll be talking to Derek Smith throughout the year. But, Zion Ely, he's one of many, that we're interested in as far as the Wolf position. Mm-hmm. We have Anthony Tank Jones, another long, lean guy that we like. He may grow into a bandit, but right now we're looking at him strictly at the Wolf position. So we're gonna get him on campus and go from there.
Yeah, and I appreciate you calling out those additional names as well. I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, we say this every episode. We're gonna keep saying it, actually. But all those who were hating on the fact that we got Coach DeBoer and he don't know how to recruit, look. I mean, y'all just literally y'all just fall right into the trap every time. And then you come over here in our chat with your foot in your mouth, with your dusty self, with all those dusty L's, get mollywopped every single weekend, like y'all gonna be experiencing this season. Y'all, keep on playing, because Alabama, we number one. We're the standard for a reason. Y'all can go around running your mouth all you want to. We've been winning. That's why y'all are consistently on our network. Y'all are consistently watching the link, document everything that comes out about Alabama. Y'all be the first ones to know. So this so-called Bama killer, you're a so-called Ohio State fan, sir, you are dusty. You're raggedy. You're resentful just because y'all got beat a few years ago by Alabama in the national championship. Y'all can't beat Michigan. All they do is shit. Anyway, okay, Hannah, because we're gonna have some more of this.
We're gonna talk about Michigan a little bit.
Oh yeah, because we definitely got a lot to say about them. But any names in particular that you wanted to highlight?
Well, I was gonna say the thing about going second is that y'all have said everything, so I'm like, oh, it's great, But I will say this: I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. Not for real. Y'all nail them. I'm agreeing every single time, because I'm like, oh, there's no other person I can mention. But I will say that Luke Metz. I don't know if y'all saw what 24/7 Sports wrote about him, but I like seeing a young guy who knows what he wants and is not swayed. I think for me, I think it's so rare in players these days. And I think I said it last week that I really think there should be a boundary. There should be a limit for how many times a player can decommit or change. It's insane. I mean, you talk about Auburn. I mean, some of their guys have decommitted or committed more times and I don't even know what. But for Luke Metz to basically say, listen, I'm so thankful for these other offers, but I'm locked in at Alabama, says a lot. And that, to me, I think says a lot about who he is as a player. Because when you have a player who is locked in from day one, they're going to be that same way at Alabama. They're not going to be swayed by NIL money. They're not going to be swayed by the transfer portal. They want to prove themselves. And I think Alabama is – I'll say this too. I think you have to sometimes go through rebuilding years. And I think Alabama was blessed. I don't think I've ever said this, but I truly believe that Alabama was blessed by two things. We had our rebuilding years were through and during the Saban era, okay? And we didn't actually have to lose 7-8 games in a season to have the rebuilding era, right? Like when you look at the type of players, we went through the same process that the programs did with the transfer portal and the NIL while still being at the top. Some of the other programs in the country plummeted. Some of the other programs in the country really struggle to regain their composure and get good players. We did a good job of that. But what also I want to say before we talk about Michigan is I think one of the things we've not talked about Nick Saban is how successful he was while maintaining integrity and character. Because, I think it's so amazing that Nick Saban was as successful as he was at Alabama while also not cheating, while also not breaking rules, while also self-admitting things in NCAA, especially like the smoking cigars after the Tennessee game. We beat him every year, right? Little things like that says a lot about this program. And so when we're soon to talk about Michigan and all their drama and all their issues, I'm thankful that Nick Saban did not do that to our program. I'm thankful that he had such a high
integrity.
Yes, he did. Not just integrity, but
the character, everything.
Yeah, he had such a standard for the program that we're seeing Kalen DeBoer come in. And I mean, let's just be honest. He's a good fit, not just because he's a good coach, but because he has those same standards.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's something that I think we've not talked about, that maybe another episode we talk more into that, is how Nick Saban did what he did and had character and integrity and was successful, and how Kalen DeBoer is kind of becoming that 2.0 to do the same thing while other programs literally have to cheat, still, hopefully not kill, to beat Alabama. That's just what I'm noticing.
Yeah, I agree. And really quickly,
killing because they apparently can't keep their players out of fast cars.
Yeah.
So I mean,
and that's a different topic. Yeah. No, I agree. Really quickly before we move on from this, Lockett, Dan, what are your really quickly, because I know that we kind of it was up in the air if we were going to get Lockett to commit to Alabama. Of course, today he committed to Texas. What are your thoughts on that? Do you feel like we missed out on that, or do you feel like we're loaded at this point? We have who we need.
Yeah,
at that wide receiver position. Yeah,
let me say Alabama went into this recruiting season wanting 2 wide receivers. And they got lots here. They were really impressed with him. Very explosive player. On 3 hasn't ranked in the top 100. He just hasn't been evaluated. He's only been to one camp, and that was Alabama. Alabama is very happy with the wide receivers that they have. Yeah. The thing is, they would have taken Lockett, but they were not willing to get in the bidding war.
Yeah.
For that, something that wasn't a position of need. You know what I'm saying, in this class. Especially when you already have 1 5-star, really 2 5-star caliber guys committed. That was the thing with Lockett and Meadow, as Derek Meadows as well. Alabama is very happy with their wide receiver class. So it's a big win for Texas, but it's a minuscule loss for Alabama.
Yeah, and that's the perfect way to put it. And one other name, Jalen Hale, that was a guy who stood out to me so much last year in the 8A game. Of course, he was injured this year, couldn't really play during I don't think he played at all in the 8A game, but it's my understanding that he'll be ready to play. I'm not sure if it'll be at the start of the season, but hopefully we'll see him.
It's gonna be playoffs.
Yeah, it's gonna be playoffs.
Either way, we better see Jalen Hale. We better see anybody. We better see Jalen Hale, because Jalen Hale is that guys. And I saw someone mention his name in the comments. So that's why I threw that out there. But
I think he would. He would potentially, could have been wide receiver 1. That's the jump I was expecting from him this year.
But unfortunately, things happen the way they do for a reason. And I'm sure for him it was frustrating. But we're gonna be in them playoffs. If anybody gonna be in those playoffs, it's gonna be Alabama. So
Tua got hurt at Alabama numerous times. Yeah. And we were like, is he ever going to be healthy? And look at him now.
I agree.
Look at the success he's had. And honestly, it only takes 1 season for a player to actually have a breakout year. And I think we have not obviously seen any of the, I think we've seen. So he has so much potential, but we've seen this much. So he is the number 1 player on my board of players I'm really eager to see. So I agree with you. I'm hoping that we get to see him
sooner rather than later.
Because honestly, we need a player like that, right? I mean, teams are going to be scouting us out, watching every single film. And if we can bring in a player like him, shake things up and score touchdowns, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I agree. And before we pivot to the next topic, I do have to shout out everyone in the chat: Monica Petway, Jimmy Clay, everyone. We see y'all. We're trying to stay focused because a lot of times, Don Parker, you got your shirt. Look. Thank you, Don, for purchasing your shirt. I saw the link being shared in the comments in the live chat, so be sure to purchase yours. Like I said, they're limited, so go ahead and get them because what we're thinking to do is we want to give all the details out, but just keep in mind that they may be limited, for a couple more weeks. So go ahead and get yours. And before we jump to the next topic, I have to give a shout out to our other sponsor, whitwellsports.com. We always tell you that your game day is not the same without a title towel. Visit whitwellsports.com. We have their website in the banner below, and be sure to use the promo code STANDARD to receive an exclusive discount. And like I mentioned, we also have our t-shirts that we're selling. The Bama Standard Network, they're dropping it in the live chat. So be sure to look for it there. It's free shipping on all the merchandise. So go ahead and get yours, order it for a family member, whomever. But go ahead and show some support. We really appreciate it. And we mentioned Michigan a little earlier, but I wanted to quickly jump into Kentucky, since Kentucky is another, SEC rival. We had our game against them last year. We knew we were going to win, but it was still a good matchup, at Kentucky. Now, I'm sure some of you all have heard that they are being forced to vacate some of their wins, So the NCAA, they have been investigating the football team, but not just the football team, also their swim program. So essentially what the NCAA is saying is that basically their football team committed level 2 violations. I believe level 1 is the worst, but they committed level 2 violations, and they're calling it a significant breach of conduct. And essentially what they're saying is that 11 of the Kentucky football players a few years ago, between 2021 and 2022, they received impermissible benefits, essentially. So basically from the UK healthcare. So essentially they were getting paid for work that they didn't do. And so they said 8 out of those 11 players, they actually competed when they were ineligible, essentially. And so they're going to have to vacate their wins. I think they said it's between spring 2021 through like March 2022. Keep in mind, that was around I think that's the same time that they won the Citrus Bowl, and they had a pretty good season for the most part. They were ranked in the top 20 to end the season, so they did pretty well. And they also said that the NCAA did not find that any coaches committed anything, which is different from what came out about Michigan. So we're going to get to that next. But essentially, Kentucky, they're going to be placed on probation for 2 years. They have a fine. They're going to have to vacate the wins between that time period, particularly the wins where those 8 ineligible players played in those particular games. So that's going to be interesting. But they also said that their swimming and diving team, they were actually found to have committed some violations where they've been placed on probation for 2 years. They're going to have to pay a fine. But then they also said that, they essentially what's happening is that their staff, some of the staff, they did not allow the swimming participants to actually utilize any of their time off. They did not receive their mandated days off. And so they kind of exceeded their number of practices and all that good stuff for a 3-year period of time. So that's really interesting. But, it's just interesting to see how they're laying down the hammer against Kentucky. And I guess when you look at the timing, this happened a few years ago, and what happened with, Michigan, which I do want to jump into that next. But if y'all have any feedback to share on Kentucky, if not, I'll jump right into Michigan. Hannah, Dan, anything?
I'm ready to jump in on Michigan. Kentucky.
I'm ready to go. Yeah. Let's jump into Michigan. So that's the thing with Kentucky. I mean, it's, my biggest thing, and the reason why I wanted to talk about that first before getting into Michigan, is because you see how the NCAA is laying the hammer down on Kentucky when it comes to vacating those wins, right? So then you look at Mr. Raggedy Michigan, when they want to run around here with a little dirty national championship trophy after having Mr. Connor Stallings over the last, because it's really interesting that the last few years that they've been ranked really high in the top 4 in the college football playoff, those were the years that Connor Stallings was prancing around trying to copy, plays and all that good stuff. So it's been reported over the last few days that the NCAA did find that Mr. Connor Stallings was prancing around. He was literally dressed out in a University of Central Michigan attire on their sidelines, like the audacity. And then their now head coach, Sherrone Moore, however you pronounce his name, he was found to have deleted over 50 text messages between himself and Connor. Now, keep in mind, when it was first announced that they were being investigated at that time, the coaches didn't know, Jim Harbaugh didn't know. Remember, Jim Harbaugh was suspended the first couple of games last year. And then when it came to this investigation, he was essentially saying that he didn't know about it. Well, today it was announced that essentially the NCAA, they're placing sanctions against Jim Harbaugh. It literally means nothing. They're calling it a show cause penalty, where basically they're saying that he did not monitor the football team, the Michigan football team. And basically, it means absolutely nothing because it's a 4-year show cause, but it only affects him if he continues to coach college football, which we know that he's not. He's going on to the Chargers, $80 million, deal that he has to coach for the Chargers. So it literally means nothing. And basically this show cause has more to do with 2021, when they were essentially recruiting during the dead period. So it's just so many different things, and it's happened year after year. And the NCAA seems to turn a blind eye because they didn't want to do anything, because they wanted to go ahead and put Michigan in the top 4 and let them compete. See, that's why I say to those raggedy Florida State fans that jump in our chat and always have something to say, y'all want to say something about Alabama being in the top 4 last year? Excuse me, that's who shouldn't have been in there, because the NCAA, they have all these bylaws and all these rules, but they seem to have forgotten to put in there, if you are under investigation and it has not been found whether you're innocent or guilty, you should not be allowed to compete in a bowl game, period, or in a playoff game. It does not, like, I don't understand how that was missed. You can put everything else in this book of laws, all these bylaws, but you can't say anything about, like, it literally makes, it's almost as if they wanted to make it easy for them to get in, to see what they were going to do, and then if they won, okay, it's really ridiculous. And every time I think about it, it kind of pisses me off. But I want to get y'all's takes on this. I'll start with you, Hannah, on this one. What are your thoughts?
All right. Well, let us start by saying that Chris Williams has made everyone in the chat upset because he didn't change back to Bama Killer. And so now this Auburn fan is chatting all this Michigan stuff. So it proves how dumb he is. So, Chris, we all knew it was you, but you just proved to everyone in the chat that you are indeed also Bama Killer, and also Jason Pounders. So, you can just, I don't even know. I really just have pity on your soul, because you not only watch this podcast every Wednesday, but you have multiple accounts to comment different. I mean, buddy, get a life. Okay.
Now, like, you have all those accounts? That's so, like, how do you have time?
I don't know. I mean, I'm literally like, he doesn't, Chris, you don't realize you're commenting as Bama Killer, but your account's still Chris Williams. So anyway.
Dang.
May God have mercy upon your soul. Is that the quote from that movie? Anyway, so I'm not surprised one bit. And I'll be honest with you, it's one reason Harbaugh left, right?
Yeah.
Because he knew what was coming. And that man jumped ship. That man jumped ship faster than Rose let go of Jack. I mean, she was like, bye, you holding me down.
I know. Like, get you.
Bye, out of here.
Let him go.
So now he's got his cushy NFL check. And, I'll just say this. I have some dear friends of mine that are Michigan fans. Oh. And I am just so grateful. This goes back to my other point. I'm so grateful that we've never had to feel like this, because I am like, how embarrassing, how disgusting is it to feel like, ooh, like we had to cheat and do all this illegal activity?
I would be ashamed.
To win. I'm like, and the thing is this, like, I just don't understand why universities, it's like this. It's like people who murder. Like, it's like people who murder someone and then go out, like, do you think you're going to get away with it? Like, or like, people who really think I'm going to get away with murder. I'm going to get away with this crime. You're not going to. But somehow these universities think, well, we're going to do this illegal activity. And you know what? Deleted text messages are never, ever, ever actually deleted, just so you know. There are always ways to get all this stuff back. These emails, like Hillary Clinton, you can delete them. They're always going to be there. You're going to find them. But anyway, my point is the University of Michigan in the football program really thought they could get away with it, and they can't. But I will say this too. Shame on the NCAA for letting it get this bad, because this is my thing. The NCAA wants to get very involved when it involves them not getting money, but they want to be very uninvolved when it comes to actually punishing. It's like a really bad parent who wants the glory and fame for their child, but doesn't actually do any disciplinary actions, and their child becomes a brat. That's really what's happened with the University of Michigan, is that we have a program who is historically one of the best programs, in college football history. Like, it's such a historical program. And yet they've done the dirty deed of cheating and getting away with it. And, going into the playoff, we already knew about the sign stealing scandal, right? I mean, it's basically like the equivalent of Tom Brady's Deflategate. I mean, it's not something to be proud of. But here we are. The NCAA didn't do anything about it. They should have put a stop to it. They should have said, you know what? If you're under investigation this season, you don't get to play in the playoffs, because that sets a precedent for other programs of, you know what? We can't do X, Y, and Z, or else these are our punishments, right? And so this is one thing that's wrong with our country, is that there's no right and wrong. There's no gray and like black and white. It's all like gray. Like, maybe it is, maybe it's not. If the NCAA would actually have proper boundaries, rules, and standards, then we wouldn't be having this conversation, because the punishment would be far worse than the prize. Oh, that was pretty good, wasn't it?
Well, I mean, the saying where they say how you start is how you finish. Didn't they start the season with Harbaugh being suspended?
Yeah. I mean, it 3 times. No, this is number 4. No, right. Was it? This is either the 3rd or 4th time that something that Michigan endured.
Yeah, over the last couple of years. Yeah.
And now, no, this is the 4th, because he did something before the season. Okay.
Yeah,
and then it was in the middle of the season. And then it was the not Deflategate. Look at me talking about Tom Harbaugh now, or Tom Brady. Then it was this situation, and then it was something else. I'm just like,
and it's gonna be something else after that. Like
I'm sure tomorrow it'll be,
But see, that's the thing. The point is, we talk about the NCAA and their failure when it came to the NIL and the transfer portal. But then even this, see, that's why they shouldn't have been in a rush to establish anything like a portal or anything else. Not to say that it's not good to have those things, but you need to fix what you currently have. So they should have already implemented those bylaws regarding if you're currently under investigation. I mean, it doesn't make sense. But now it's like, one of those hindsight type of things. You kind of look back and you're like, okay, maybe they were kind of making it easy for them in a sense. I don't know. But if I were an Ohio State fan or a fan of someone else's, team, I would really feel some type of way. Shout out to Amber Nicole. Michigan was ineligible for the CFP, and we're just now. I mean, I agree, Amber, and we were all saying that. Like, I feel like, and they know that. That's the worst part about it. Like, they literally know that. And my thing is, like, you let them slide up in the playoffs. No, and that's one of the worst things that you can do, is to cheat to get somewhere. You know what I mean? And then you have other people on the outside looking in. Like, it's not fair. But Dan, I'm going to toss it to you. And then
can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
If Florida State fans want to be mad at anyone,
that's what I said. Exactly.
I know. I'm agreeing.
I don't get it. I don't get there's no logic behind that.
No, and Alabama lost a game, and I don't know why we're even having this conversation about Alabama didn't deserve to get in. How many games? We know the answer, but I'm reiterating it for the dumb nuts in the chat. How many games did Alabama lose in the regular season last year? Okay. What were they? You're muted, but yes, Texas.
It was Texas.
Okay. So when you look at that loss, and then was it the beginning, the middle, or the end of the season?
It was the beginning.
Okay. Did the team get better or worse throughout the season?
That's the important thing. They got better.
Okay. So then you look at that. Did they make it to their conference championship?
They did.
Did they win the conference championship?
They did.
Those 4 things, actually 5, were the quality. That was the quality they looked for in the BCS and the original college football playoff. Those were things they looked for. If Florida State fans want to get mad, talk about Michigan. I know they went undefeated, blah, 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 but they cheated. Okay. Just going to leave it there. Alabama deserved 100% to get in the playoff. Why? Because who did Washington play in the playoff?
Texas.
Okay. So the team Alabama lost to made it to the playoff, correct?
Correct.
So that completely validates the fact that Alabama deserved to be in the playoff.
And honestly, we don't need any validation, because we're Alabama at the end of the day. I mean, we're the best of the best. Like, it's just,
I'm a logical person,
but they're not. That's the thing. Like,
that's what I'm saying. But I like
that's why you got to explain it to them.
But that's the thing. It's like I've learned to, for one, not to argue with the fool, but for two, it becomes pointless, because certain people, they have like that beg to differ spirit where they don't want to really hear what you have to say anyway.
Right.
Like they have, it's almost like a smoke screen. It's pitiful. It's like it's literally a way, like you could be doing something better with your time than to sit up there and try to explain something to a brick wall. Someone who, because they don't like Alabama anyway. Anything that we do, they're going to scrutinize and they're going to say that we didn't deserve it. Oh, y'all struggled against South Florida, sir. We're Alabama. At the end of the day, whatever you say, period, we're Alabama, period. That's it. Like it's nothing else left to say. And I don't know when they're going to
embarrass myself.
Shout out to my best friend Erica.
I thought someone was breaking in my house. And it was the American flag waving outside, but I literally thought someone was about to come knock on my door, try to get in. So
I was gonna say, go get that tool, Hannah. Go get that tool.
No, girl, I got a bunch of stuff in this house. I'm breaking in. Hey, listen, they gonna regret it the second they do it.
Yeah, you come up in here, you ain't going out in one piece.
No, girl, you ain't.
Oh yes,
you take them out, revive them, and take them out again. They don't
there ain't no reviving on this. Hey, listen, when someone breaks in my house, they just better hope they know the Lord and Savior.
They be going at them pearly gates talking to Jesus
real quick.
Trying to find out if their name is in the Lamb's Book of Life, because Anywho, Dan, any thoughts that you want to share regarding the Michigan and Kentucky scandal?
Yeah, Harbaugh, come on, man. You know, he's a smart guy, I like to say. You know what I'm saying? That is, you know, he the biggest liar or the biggest fool. You know what I'm saying? That's total lack of institutional control at the least. You know, so
I gotta use that, Dan.
Yeah, how could you not know what's going on in your program? So I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. We letting them off real soft. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I mean, this is criminal. The things that they've done, you know, coaches on other teams' sidelines, you know, sign stealing is, you know, all right, it's frowned upon, you know, but the lengths that they went to do it, I mean,
buying tickets to the games, and then 9 times out of 10 was writing it, like was expensing it using the college's cards.
That's
like
wrong. That's
fraud. Like what?
You know, so it's a whole lot of things that's wrong with that. You know, Michigan, you know, come on, man. You know, you stooping to Auburn levels.
Exactly. Like that level of desperation, like you said, it's Auburn level. But see, that's why Chris and everybody else in the chat, the little Auburn fans or whatever they are, that's why they're so mad. You know, they're like, man, Michigan, they can't do us better than we do us. Shout out to Jimmy Clay, the war buzzers. Exactly. That's all they are. Now,
Can I say one thing about Auburn?
They stink.
They raggedy, dusty.
You lost 31-13 to Maryland and their backup quarterback in the Music City Bowl. So, like, I mean, listen, the only bowl y'all belong in is the toilet paper going in the toilet bowl, because like, literally, let's just Google. Let's just Google brand of toilet, because that really should be. Let me just see a brand of toilets. I don't know.
Collier. Collier, is that one?
I don't know, but here's a brand. Sterling Plumbing.
They would know. We should ask.
Hey, just drop it. Plumbing bowl. Actually, you know what? They could just be, the bowl could be sponsored by Angel Soft, the Angel Soft bowl, where you can wipe your tears and your tushy at the same time.
They need a sponsorship from a baby wipe.
No, they need one ply.
Yeah. Exactly. Good for your, literally their slogan should be good for your tears and your tushy.
Hey, don't let the door hit you or the Lord split you. That should be their motto. Okay, well, let's move on and then we'll address the haters again. But I wanted to mention Trent Richardson. We all remember him, one of the best running backs to ever do it at Alabama. He was on the 2011 and 2012 national championship teams. It was announced that actually a few days ago, last week, that he was going to be joining Hoover High School's coaching staff. And so that's awesome, because he was already at Ramsey. I think last season he was at Ramsey High School, and now he's going to Hoover High School to coach. However, it's been reported that the head coach and the defensive coordinator at Hoover have been placed on administrative leave. And honestly, with the video that I saw and what took place, they should be fired. And I'm just going to say it. I know that the police are investigating it, but and it makes me wonder exactly, they're saying that Trent was added to the coaching staff. I haven't yet figured out where he would fall. Maybe a running backs coach. I don't know, but it makes me wonder.
Be the head coach now.
That's what I was. You know what? I was wondering that because I'm like the timing of things, right? And then I'm like, okay, I wonder how this is going to impact Trent's decision as well because these are some. This is like some harassment. Like this is on a whole different level.
I'll say this: it's sad, and I don't. Hold on, what's the word I'm looking for? Do I say I do condone it or I don't condone it? To condone it means approve it, right? My head hurts.
You condone it means you approve it, yeah.
Okay, I don't condone. Okay, I don't agree with the behavior, but the reality is this: that happens everywhere. Okay, it's just social media. Why are you laughing? I can't use words.
That shouldn't happen. You know,
it's true though. I mean, not in college level.
Yeah.
But my dad was one of the coaches in high school, and he didn't do this. But I saw many players get thrown down. And I'll say this: Nick Saban smacked AJ McCarron's booty, and that people about lost their minds. This was this was before Twitter was as popular X as it is now. But like, it's such a common behavior, and that's sad. I'm not agreeing with it. I'm just saying, like, other coaches need to see this situation. We talked about last week with maybe the sad situation can help other people's decisions. May this example be an example for other coaches on to get their act together, because it takes one video to ruin your life, one video to ruin your career, and one choice to also ruin your life. So may they use this example to help themselves. But I will just say this: Hoover is not the only program, especially in Alabama, that has these type of coaches that do that type of behavior. I've seen it with my own eyes, but I'm glad something's being done about it, because you can be a rough and tumble coach without being sexually inappropriate.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
that's on a different level. But you know what? You in any action that you take, you have to think about how it's going to be perceived, because perception is reality to the person on the other side. So you can always say, which I'm sure the head coach is going to say, "Oh, I didn't intend for it to be that way, or that's not what I intended." It's not about that. It's about how was it perceived, because you have these young kids. Imagine what that, how, and if you can do something like that out in public, what's happening in private? Like, that's my question.
Yeah,
I
agree with you. People don't care. People don't care what your intentions were. People care what your behavior was. Like, people can say, "Well, I didn't intend to hurt your feelings." Well, you did, Linda. So, like, shut up and apologize. Like, I don't care what you're intending to do. What you did was hurt my feelings.
You do, yeah.
So, like, they can say, "I didn't intend." It doesn't matter, because you're right. Perception is reality, and sure, some of the players may think it's fine and whatever, but at the end of the day, you have to realize that these are kids. These are minors. And the behavior that you do on the field, like that, he could actually be, so if someone took that the wrong way, they could actually be like put in jail for that. Like, it is not.
And the police are looking into it now.
Yeah, like, that's the severity of it. Is like, it's not just, "Oh, well, he smacked my booty." It's no, he literally humped my face.
In public.
That's a really big deal.
Look, for him to do that in public on the field, I'm just like, what are you doing behind closed doors when you're in the, like, you have, like, you can literally do something like that to someone, but see, like the great Maya Angelou said, it's not what you say that someone remembers, is how you make them feel, right? I mean, and those kids are gonna remember that. It doesn't matter what.
They had this video, or else we never probably would have had it. And then they would go home and. Parents are scared to say anything, and the kid probably wouldn't have said anything because he doesn't want to not get playing time. It's the whole thing is corrupt, but it takes good coaches like Nick Saban to change the dynamic, because Nick Saban slapped AJ McCarron's butt, but Nick Saban was an honorable man who cared more about his players than his own success, and that
was not a sexual act either.
Exactly.
That was on a whole different level.
It was you're my son, and you need a little bit of
the Hoover. That some garbage when you see some garbage. That was perverted all over. Dan, really quickly, what are your thoughts on Trent, and then what are your thoughts on this whole ordeal that's happening with Hoover?
Yeah, congratulations, Trent. Who knows what the future holds now, considering the situation. But, let me tell you, I played for old school coaches that were physical on me. You know what I'm saying? But to that extent, anytime you rip a player's head, you have no good intentions for that kid. You can't say
it's almost like hate.
You care about a kid.
Yeah.
Do that to a kid and then say you care about him.
Lord.
So, that was horrible. And the second video where the coach, they already had the guy restrained, the coach ran and pushed him down. What are you trying to prove? You're trying to prove you're the alpha, to a kid. I mean,
well, it's intimidation.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't prove anything other than that you're an idiot. So there's no excuse for that kind of behavior, from a coach.
Yeah, and it says a lot about the coach's defensive coordinator and the head coach as a person. Maybe some things that they struggle with. I mean, it's like when I saw that, I'm like, yeah, that's a whole different level of like that. That's some demonic stuff that they have going on. But I'm glad that it's being brought up to the forefront. And I hope and pray that any other player, even in the past, that was affected by those two in particular, and they need to call out any other coaches who may be perpetrators or who may have sat there and saw certain things happen and didn't say anything. Because it needs to come out. Now, I want to make sure that we discuss a few other things, and then we'll address some haters if we have any more.
They ain't worth my energy or my time, honestly.
Yeah, maybe I think we kind of addressed that.
Maybe we'll leave.
Yeah, well, let's hit on Bama and other sports, because we do like to kind of talk about our other sports teams, not just football. Now, I wanted to quickly touch on the Olympics. We had 3 guys in particular who competed today in the men's track and field 400-meter final. Now, they didn't place, in the top 3, of course, but we had Karani James. He competed in Grenada, Jareem Richards in Trinidad and Tobago, and then Samuel Ogazi in Nigeria. Now, Samuel, he's still on the team. He's entering his second year at Alabama now. Unfortunately, he placed 7th today. But the other 2 guys, they attended Alabama. One of them, I think, Karani, he was there 2010 to 2011. He placed 5th today. And then Jareem Richards, he placed, I believe, 4th today. And he was at Alabama in 2017. So, of course, they didn't win per se. But, Karani James, he was reported to be the first male to reach the 400-meter in Olympic history. So that's a huge feat. So I wanted to mention that. But then I wanted to mention a couple things to y'all about men's basketball and gymnastics. So men's basketball, and I know, Dan, we kind of touched on, I believe, 1 or 2 of these names in the past, but there were a couple guys whose names came up as far as the 2025 class. So we have a shooting guard, Malik Thomas. He's from Pennsylvania. He listed Alabama in his top 7. He's currently playing at Overtime Elite in Atlanta, and he said that he's looking at Alabama because the way that our play style and how well we develop guards, etc. So he received an offer from Alabama last year. But then one of his teammates, who also is here in Atlanta, Jasper Johnson, he's also a shooting guard. He listed Alabama in his top 5, and he visited Alabama in June of this year. And he's a southpaw like me, so I have to shout that out, because I just don't run into a lot of left-handed people. So it's just a different world to some degree. Like even in college and stuff, like the desk, like they have certain ones, for left-handed people. A lot of people don't notice it. I went out and bought a guitar when I was in college, didn't realize to buy a left-handed guitar. So it's just certain things that like you really have to keep that in mind. So shout out to Jasper for being a southpaw. But another guy, he's a power forward, 2025 class, Caleb Wilson. And he's at a different school in Atlanta, but he said that he's going to be visiting Alabama in September. I think it's around maybe right after Labor Day. 6'9", 200 pounds. I believe he's also a southpaw. And it's said that whether he is or not, they say that he plays really well with his left hand. So he could be right-handed, and he's just, really good with both, ambidextrous. I don't know. But then also a 2025 class small forward, AJ DeBonsa from Utah. He listed Alabama in his top 7. Another 6'9" guy, 200 pounds. Wingspan is 7 feet. Huge guy. He's ranked as the #1 small forward in the nation. So I'm going to stop it there, though. I want to get your take on that. Men's basketball, what are your thoughts? And are there any other names that we need to be looking out for?
Yeah, those are the key ones. Jasper Johnson, he recently visited Lexington. That's not good. That doesn't bode well for Bama, but we're still in it. I think we still have a puncher's chance, but the chance got slimmer. I considered us the front runner before that. So, Kentucky they're pulling out all the stops for Jasper Johnson.
But let me ask you something really quick before you mention anyone else. With Jasper and him visiting Kentucky, I know that those sanctions that just happened against Kentucky were against football and swimming. But do you think from a potential commit perspective, would they be looking at it like, oh man, wait a minute, like, they're getting in trouble. How do you know it's not going to trickle down to other sports? Do you think that they may consider that, or he may consider
Not at all.
Okay.
Not, he wants the ball. Kentucky's not a bad program. You
They're
know what I'm
not,
saying?
yeah.
It's a bad basketball program.
Yeah.
You know, and Kentucky will be okay, you know, but it's tough. You know, we're back to fighting a uphill battle with Jasper Johnson. I think we can get him on campus again. You know, I would like our chances more. Malik Thomas, another elite, you know, shooter. You know, Caleb Wilson, a stretch four. You know, he fits the, you know, the Jaren Stevenson, Noah Clowney role. You know, so guys, we always have, you know, those guys like that thrive in Nate Oates' system. So, you know, we're just gonna see everybody. You know, we're in it on a lot of guys. You know, and that's something that Nate Oates has established. You know, he put us in at, you know, where we don't have to settle for guys now.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, it's awesome what we're doing. Nate Oates, he's that guy. And I feel like since he's been there, though, especially not even just the new recruits, but even the transfers and how he's been able to pull guys from the portal. He's not afraid to use the portal. One other sport that I want to mention, and then I want to toss it to Hannah to get your take on the Olympics, basketball, and then gymnastics. So it was announced this week that one of our former gymnasts, Morgan Dennis Morris, she has been added to our staff as the director of operations. And she was that girl when she was at Alabama. So 2007, she won an individual national championship on the floor exercise. She's a 6-time individual SEC champion. She won 6 individual NCAA regional titles, and she earned 8 All-American honors. I mean, she's just that girl. And so the fact that she's been added as the director of operations, I think that's a really good move for our gymnastics program. Yep. Hannah, what are your thoughts? And then anything else that you wanted to share?
Yeah, and I think that people don't realize that it was actually preset time. Ashley Johnson, they competed with each other. And so I think that's a really big deal. I think she's a great fit, and I think that, you know, give the gymnastics program 1 or 2 more seasons. I think we'll be back to where we were in the Patterson era. We're actually winning championships. Another sport I want to mention is Alabama women's soccer. Their first game, their exhibition game tonight against LSU ranked in the top 20. I don't know if y'all fought them last year. They were extremely successful. One of the best soccer teams Alabama's ever fielded ever. And, you know, I think it's really exciting because I remember when I was at Alabama, I was a rower, for y'all who don't know. And a lot of my friends were either softball players or they were soccer players. And I went to those soccer games, y'all, and we would get beat. It was so bad. The only reason I went is because they gave me free hot dogs, and I was a fat college kid who needed food. They'd give us free food. Y'all remember Tuscaloosa Toyota would basically bribe us with TVs, food, and cars to get us to go to the games. Especially the men's basketball.
Basketball.
Women's basketball was so bad that if you showed up, you were guaranteed to leave with an Apple, an iMac, an iPod, an iPad, something, because 5 students would come, they give away all this stuff.
I get a whole car.
Toyota Tundra, because he went to every single sporting event to win the truck, and he did. So anyway, all that to say, we've come a long way in our sports programs. Soccer is one of them, but I also want to mention Alabama. We have we had 17 Olympians that were current or former. We've had 213 all time, but this year we had 17. We also have several. I'm going to try to get one of my friends on the show either next week or the next, but we have several Paralympians they're going to be going. I think it's in 2 or 3 weeks they compete actually in Paris. So if you don't know, the Olympics happen and the Paralympics happen. And I'll be very honest to say that I actually find the Paralympics a little bit more intriguing than the Olympics, because you're talking about watching people swim faster than I can, and they have no arms and no legs. They're just a trunk, okay? Or my friend, Mackenzie Solden, I'll have to let her tell her story, but she has done so many sports. But you have Canadian athletes in Alabama, the wheelchair basketball team, they get players from all over the world. So you may have Australia, Canada, you have several countries represented, but all these Alabama athletes are going to be going to Paris to compete. So I think I just wanted to mention that as well, because it's a very well-loved community, and they don't get enough publicity for how amazing of a job they've done. So all that to say, women's soccer is tonight, 7:00. Actually, I think they've already started. You know what? Let me go look on Twitter and see how they're doing. X, whatever. They're playing LSU, who I don't know if you've been to Baton Rouge, but I think everyone smells like corn dogs down there.
I was down there, but it wasn't for a game. So I'll just say that.
So we're currently, we just scored. Freshman Kylie Kukan, I probably just butchered her name. I apologize. finds Gianna Paul to score the first goal of the match. So we're currently beating
awesome.
LSU 1-0.
It just started in 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hopefully we win. I mean, I'm sure it's not easy, being down there, but hopefully we win. And then Dan, you have
Bengals.
huh?
Anytime you can beat the Bayou Bengals, you go ahead and do it.
True. I agree. And then also, I'm not sure if y'all know, but fan football day is actually this Sunday in Bryant-Denny Stadium. So basically, it's going to be an open practice for the fans. It's free, and it's from I think the stadium opens at like 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, and then they're gonna have a practice from like 11:15 to 1:15 Central Standard Time. So of course, it's free, and they have some other stuff going on, but that stuff you either have to be a part of like the collective as a member, Alabama Collective, or you have to pay. So, but I do believe Kalen DeBoer is going to be giving some autographs and stuff like that. I just don't know if that part of it is going to be free. But okay, let me just assign. But yeah, so be sure if you're in Tuscaloosa or a surrounding area, be sure to go out and support the team. Like I said, this Sunday, stadium opens at 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. Now we do have Teague's Take tonight. It's at 9:15 Eastern Standard Time tonight, like I said. And then Saturday night's Talking Bama this weekend, Saturday, 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time with JB and Josh Tucker. And then let's see. Reading your comment, Hannah. But we will leave it at that. I think we covered a lot, and we have a lot more to cover next week. So we really appreciate those. What do you say?
He said, "All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up, guys."
Oh, nobody asked you to be in our.
You're not even welcome here. You know what?
You've been here for the entirety.
You know what?
You know what I'm saying?
It's like,
dude,
like you're the person that shows up uninvited to a party, and then it's like that's who you are. Literally, you're the person who showed up uninvited to a party and then complains that the party ain't fun. Well, go home, boo. He's the one here anyway.
Look, Hannah, he's the one who doesn't get invited, but he shows up anyway. He gets beat up, he gets mollywopped, and he has to go home crying. And he's up in his little closet plotting on the people that beat him up. And you still can't do nothing. Just like Auburn, you still can't do nothing with that trail of dust with all those L's that y'all take. Like that's literally all y'all know how to do. Like, look, y'all are dusty, sir. All those L's, you should be embarrassed. I would not be on these people's internet this time of night talking about anything if I was a raggedy Auburn fan. Like y'all have literally nothing to talk about. Nothing that you do excels anyone else. It's just literally a trail of failure. Like how? I could never. If I was Antonio Coleman, sir, you look completely ridiculous, flipping back and forth between the best to ever do it and the worst to ever do it. Like
a fish that's got out of water, flip, flop, flip.
Yeah.
Hey, make your private chat, by the way.
Let me see. Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and end the call. Any social media, we're gonna have to jump off. But Hannah, really quickly, any social media that you want to share?
Follow me on X and Facebook at Girl Dan. Go ahead, Dan the Fourth, Dan James the Fourth.
You can catch me on Twitter at Final Whistle Dan, Instagram Dan James the Fourth. You catch me on Tuesday nights, the Final Whistle, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. Right here on Wednesday night, the Crimson Dynasty. 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central.
All right, and that'll do it. We'll see y'all next week, same time, same place. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.